All right, finally get this thing up and going. This is day 9, hour 10 of quarantine. I've been sustaining off of Kool-Aid packets for 3 days, and soon I'm going to have to move on to my mountain of toilet paper, which I rushed to the store to buy. Oh man, I miss you guys a lot right now. Um, Yeah, so this is week 12 of developmental reading and writing. This is our first online teaching session thing. Excuse the format of this, it's not the best. This is very improvised because of our weird situation this semester. So, first off, I want to say if you have any questions that I didn't answer during this video, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll type it up on the screen right now. Just do it right there. It is also on the syllabus, which can be found on Blackboard. Okay, so today we are going to go over 3 things. We're going to go over my thoughts on the previous essays and the mistakes on those essays. We're going to go over Module 9, titled Power Verbs. And finally, we're going to go over passive voice and the compare and contrast essay. I hope all of you got my email the other day about our schedule. Currently, we're looking at the next essay's rough draft being due on, I believe, Saturday. That way it gives me all of Sunday to critique them, and I should be able to get you all of them back on Sunday night. And then we are looking at the final draft be due on the following Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next Wednesday. Next Wednesday. I think that is April 8th is what it looks like. So that is that. If you have any questions about those dates, or if you need those dates extended for whatever reason, shoot me an email before the date passes. Don't wait until after the date passes. Okay, getting right into it. So the previous mistakes on the essays were my thoughts on the previous essays. I thought the description essays were overall pretty good. I was happy with how most of them turned out. I'm not done grading the narratives, however. However, the ones I have graded, including the description essays, you should be able to see my comments on them right now if you go and view them. So you should be able to see, let's see here. If you go on this page where it has all of your classes on there, click right here, click here, go to turn in the assignments, click on this view complete thing, and yours should say view when you go to view it, and you'll be able to view your draft that you turned in, and I'll have like little thought bubbles that you can click on that'll share my comments with you. If you have any questions about them, shoot me an email, of course. So overall, the narratives, judging from the rough drafts and so far on the final drafts, it looks like most people were, or well, not most people, but some people were having a problem focusing on the answering the prompt. A lot of people failed to answer the prompt or meet the prompt's demands entirely. What I mean by that is that you were writing a narrative essay. You were supposed to be telling a story. There were a few of you who spent too much time giving context or giving analysis or giving some concluding statements, and not enough time with the narrative plot points of your story. So for those students, what they would do, they would spend about 5 or 6 sentences on the plot of their essay from beginning to end, and either at the beginning or at the end, they would have 3 or 4 sentences giving context, explaining how important that story was to them, or the significance of that story, and they focused less on the chain of events that evolved, or involved with the story. Now, I'm not saying that, explaining why the story is important or the events were important or anything like that. I'm not saying that you can't include anything like that, but it needs to be on the minimum. Okay, it was a 12 to 15 sentence essay. If you have 5 to 6 sentences focused on the actual story and the rest of it is focused on that other stuff, that's way too much on the other stuff. Okay, I think that you needed like 12 to 13 sentences focused on the story, and then the other 2 sentences can be with contextual stuff or conclusion. So that is my thoughts on that. The other part that people were messing up on, I guess, was that they were doing a lot of telling, not a lot of showing. So what I mean by that is, we have an example right here, is they would say something like, "We rode rides at the fair." Nothing grammatically wrong with that sentence, but it could be a lot more descriptive. So let's spice it up. We can say, "We rode Sasquatch, which was the scariest ride at the fair." Not only does it give me a name for a specific ride, but it also describes that ride. Okay? So, and some people did sentences like these throughout their entire essay. I encourage you, please stay away from sentences like these. Be as descriptive as possible. So, moving on. Module 9. Power verbs. This goes over something that a lot of you are going to be familiar with because we talked about it all semester. It boils down to formal versus informal word usage. Okay? This one is just focused on verbs. All right? This is nothing new that we haven't gone over before. This is just a little quiz over it. So we're going to go over exactly what the module looks like, and surprise, surprise, I have an example down here. This is not something that's going to be on your module, but I think it's a pretty good representation of the questions that you're going to run into during this module. So the module will give you 10 questions like always. This one's going to be fill in the blank, and in this case you're going to have verbs that you are going to fill in the blank with. You're going to have to pick the best verb. Notice I said best, not correct. All of these verbs that it's going to give you are, or at least should be, correct. It might throw you a few curveballs, but I looked at them. Most of them are correct, but they say the same thing in different ways, and you're going to have to pick the one that best fits in this slot. Okay, so let's talk about how you can do that. We have this sentence. The movie Halloween blank us when we were 12 and we could not move during it. So how might we do this? Well, we can look at all these and we can say the movie Halloween petrified us when we were 12 and we could not move during it. The movie Halloween horrified us when we were 12 and we could not move during it. That doesn't really help so much this time because all of these things mean relatively the same thing. They're pretty similar versions of the same word, but they have very specific use cases. One thing you might notice is that all of these mean scared. Scared is the most informal usage of these. And likewise, most tests are probably going to give you a multiple choice where there's an obvious one that you can count out. Okay, so we automatically know that it's not that one. Okay, because that's the most informal one there. Then next we have these. So how do we decipher between these? Well, let's take a look at the rest of this sentence. The movie Halloween blanked us when we were 12 and we could not move during it. So this might be your hint. You might have a little hint in the latter half of the sentence or maybe the beginning that will help you fill in the blank. So in this case, if you don't know exactly the difference between each of these words, I would recommend you take out your handy dandy Google Safari or whatever you use and just Google the words, petrified definition. Look that up right there. so frightened that one is unable to move. And look at there, it's also very similar to terrified. So you would just take in and fill this in with petrified. By the way, I'm sorry. It's not supposed to say terrified right there, but for my example, this is the answer that I was expecting. It'll be a little bit more obvious on the module. More than likely, you're going to have something closer to this. It'll be like it'll be something a little bit more easier to do. If you have any questions on this, please, as always, shoot me an email. I am, well, now that the quarantine is happening, I'm usually like always at home, and I always have my phone on me, and I'm always available for email. So if that wasn't very clear, just shoot me an email, guys. Okay, moving on. We're going to go over our book, which we haven't gone over in quite a while now because we haven't been in class, unfortunately. Week 12 covers chapter 11. It covers the passive voice and the compare and contrast essay. So, in chapters 4 and 5, we discuss certain aspects of the verbs, specifically verb forms and subject agreement. So, in this chapter, in this little lesson right here, we're going to be learning what the passive voice is, and we're going to be learning how to avoid said passive voice. So, there are other aspects of verbs, including tense, mood, and voice. At this time, it isn't necessary to delve into the complexities of tense and mood, but for clarity in your writing, it's important that you avoid the passive voice. Let me repeat that. It is important that you avoid the passive voice for clarity in your writing. Okay? So, what is the passive voice? Well, here is an example. The Queen's tarts were stolen. The Queen's tarts were stolen. You'll note that in this sentence, the subject tarts does not perform an action. Instead, a person or persons unspecified have acted upon the subject. Okay, so the big deal about this is that we know that the Queen's tarts were stolen, however, we don't know the person or persons that stole them. Okay, so the big deal with them is that it leaves out information. The big deal with the passive voice is that it leaves out information. So, the alternative and vastly preferable voice is the active, in which the subject performs the action. Okay, so the Knave of Hearts stole those tarts. In this form of the sentence, we now know who stole the tarts. Okay, alternatively, you could also say the Knave of Hearts stole the Queen's tarts. All right. If this was your own work, you could have something like this. Above all else, let's say the passive voice leaves a serious gap in the information the writer is transmitting to the reader, and this is very important. Because the content is the most important part of the essay. Okay, so moving along here. Oh, and this just gives you an example of this. Okay, so it has other examples right here of passive voice. Who baked the tarts? Who stole them? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, that wasn't the example. I was reading the wrong part. Some tarts were baked. Those tarts were stolen. The tarts were called for, and the knave was beaten full sore. Okay, so lots of little details are missing from that section. And the author of the book has corrected all of those little sections down here. So let's look at the first part. Some tarts were baked. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. Very specific. We have who made the tarts, and we have when the tarts were made. And it's the same thing for the rest of these. And notice, for those of you who are looking to, or who are struggling to meet the length requirement, it actually benefits you to do the active voice. Look how short this sentence is word-wise. Some tarts were baked. That is, one second, I almost messed up my math. Some tarts were baked. That is 4 words. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 words in this sentence. This is much longer. The active voice will help you meet your length requirement, and it will also give you more details to put in your story and overall improve your writing. Okay, this is something that is just going to take time. I used to have a very big problem with passive voice until one of the teachers in the English department ruthlessly called me out on it every single time I did it, and eventually I got rid of it. Let's move on here. So we have a few worksheet examples that I'm going to go over with you. We're probably not going to do all of these. I don't want this video to drag on too long, but this is just giving us examples of passive voice, and we're going to correct them. So let's just get out that right there. Oh, not that. This. All right. So we have the World Series was won. So obviously the information was missing. The information that we're missing is who won the World Series. We might also want to say where the World Series was won. Let's say something like this. I hope you guys can see all this stuff. Yeah, you should be able to see that. I hope you can. Let's change our font back to black. So you might say something like, instead of the World Series was won, you might say the Saints in Chicago. The St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series in Chicago. That is a fine sentence. I didn't pick those teams or whatever biasly, or however you say that. I just pulled them out of a hat. But anyway, the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series in Chicago. Notice we have a location now, and we have the team that won it. All that unspecified information that this passive voice has created is gone. And notice how, again, this one and all these other ones, they're not grammatically incorrect, but they could be much more improved with a lot more detail in them that could benefit the essay that they are in. A lot of you could benefit from this in your narrative essays. Okay, let's do a few more. So, this number 3. In anticipation of the approaching monsoon, the university was evacuated. So, right here we are missing, we're probably not going to put the name of the university in just because it's a textbook example, but what we can definitely do is put in a location. So, in anticipation of the approaching monsoon, the university, not was evacuated, we want to get rid of that. The university evacuated to the high ground. In anticipation of the approaching monsoon, the university evacuated to the high ground. This lets the reader know exactly where they were going. All right, after its purchase in 1803, the Louisiana Territory was explored. Very similar to the last one. We can fix this by fixing the last two words at the end and adding on some information, particularly who it was explored by. So let's say after its purchase, that is not how you spell purchase, in 1803. See, that's why it's really important to use Microsoft Word. It lets you know when you messed up and misspelled words. Actually, you know what? We're going to change it a little bit. We are going to insert the missing information in the middle of the sentence. We are going to say this. After its purchase in 1803, Lewis and Clark explored the Louisiana Territory. Okay, so again, we are inserting the person or persons that were unspecified or missing. That it talks about right here into the sentence. Now you can do this in multiple ways. As I've said multiple times throughout the semester, there's not just one way to say something in English. You can say it in as many ways as you can think of. There's dozens of ways to say literally the exact same thing. So this isn't the only way. You could have organized this sentence in multiple ways. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to your next essay. So let's go ahead and pull up a copy of the essay. If you have not found it yet, it is on Blackboard currently. You can go to, well, you can go to your classes right here, click on your class, go up to content, go to assignment sheets, go to assignment 4, comparison and contrast. Open it up. And we'll put it right here. There we go. So, assignment 4, comparison and contrast. Choose a topic or subject matter conducive to the comparison and contrast. You will then evaluate your subject matter using at least 4 criteria or elements to determine how your subjects are alike and how they are different. Then you will develop a thesis based on your evaluations. Finally, you will write the comparison contrast essay implementing either a subject by subject pattern or a point by point pattern. Okay? Let's get one thing straight very quickly. This essay is going to be a test of your organizational skills. Okay? It is very easy to get confused and trail off into all sorts of directions, no matter what your subjects are. Okay? So, let's continue. Don't know why that happened. The format. Your paper will be 12 to 15 sentences long. No exceptions. You will write your name in the top left-hand side of the page and begin your writing the next... Oh, not the next page down. That's a typo. The next line down. It will have Times New Roman 12-point font and be double-spaced. Nothing complicated there. Handing in the assignment, you will do so over Blackboard through Turnitin links for the rough draft and for the final draft. The rough draft is going to be due on Saturday, so I have time to critique them on Sunday. I should be having them back to you on Sunday night, and then the final draft will be due next Wednesday on April 8th, I believe. So be aware of that. Should be able to get them done by then. I don't foresee changing that date, but who knows? It's a weird semester. I expect all of you to have them done by the rough drafts done by Saturday, though, at least. So let's talk about this. You'll be graded on your thesis statement. A good thesis statement will adequately give the subject of the paper and can be proven throughout the paper. A good thesis statement will not have so much detail in it that it can be confused with a supporting detail. For example, the transition from high school to college can be very difficult or fairly manageable, but it depends on how one handles the setting of college. You want plenty of supporting details of this as well. A supporting detail is a detail added to your paper with the sole purpose of supporting your thesis statement. Ugh, I'm starting to get a cramp in my jaw. If a supporting detail does not directly support your thesis statement, you may explain why it does. Failure to do so will result in the loss of points. So, for example, college and high school can be critiqued on 4 different criteria. Remember? At least 4 criteria. Living situation, food situation, school spirit, and responsibility. In high school, students must live under their parents' roof, but in college, they get to share a dorm room with a peer without any interference from their parents. And in this case, you might elaborate a few times on the same living situation that I mentioned right here before moving on to the next category. Okay. Let's see. The book also has an example here. I am very sorry. I don't think you guys could read that before. Hopefully, the next one will be a little bit better. All right. Book example. So, the book example has a little outline prepared for you already. You can choose to copy this outline. I highly recommend you make an outline for this paper. Make it look just like this. Set it up with the introduction as 1, then you have an A and a B, and then the body, and then an A, B, and C. Really recommend this stuff before you just start writing. So you have the introduction. You'll have 2 quantities you'll compare and contrast. Quantity 1 or quantity 2. This person is comparing a laptop computer to a tablet. And you might have these specific points of comparison contrast. This person is choosing their categories as being the size and weight, the available programs and apps, and the cost. So that would be like what we have up here. There are 4 criteria or elements that they're comparing both objects or subjects or topics or whatever by. Okay, so, and then the body, they'll spend maybe the first paragraph talking about point 1, the size and the weight, and then they'll go over the laptop, and then they'll go over what the tablet has to offer in those specific areas. And that's what their first paragraph will be like. Point 2 will be completely focused on the programs and apps, and it will probably also take up just a paragraph, and it will compare them directly, the laptop and then the tablet. Notice it is going in the same exact order that it's previewed up here in the introduction. And notice that it is choosing to go by the laptop and then the tablet every time. Very uniform, very predictable, but nothing necessarily wrong for that. Okay? We don't want to overcomplicate things. Point 3, the cost. Might spend a whole paragraph on that. That's a very very big variable in this. You could talk about it for a whole paragraph, or it could simply take up 1 sentence if you're going over a specific laptop versus a specific tablet. Now, if you're going to go over laptops versus tablets in general, you might have tons of different things. You could go over the difference between an iPad mini, an iPad Pro, iPad Super Pro, or whatever all the different iPads there are, versus a Kindle, something like really cheap. Yeah, I mean, the differences there could be like, $500 for the iPad versus maybe $100 or $200 for the Kindle. I'm not sure. I haven't priced tablets in a very long time. But it's just going to depend on how you want to set up and how much time you spent on the previous 2 points before this. And it's going to depend on, remember, fitting in those 12 to 15 sentences, okay? Do not choose a topic that is too big for this, okay? That was another mistake that some people made in the narrative. They would pick their narrative and they would say, oh, I'm going on a month-long trip to Siberia or something like that, and they would try to fit it in the 12 to 15 sentence length. And it just didn't work that well because you can't fit in a whole lot of detail of a month-long trip in 12 to 15 sentences if you do every single day. Okay, even if you do every week, it's just not going to be that detailed. What I would encourage you to do if you run into that situation, you would narrow your scope or you narrow your field down. Maybe if you wanted to do it on your month-long trip, maybe you pick one day to do. That's definitely doable in 12 to 15 sentences. But it just depends, again, on how you set it up. There's a lot of different ways to say things in using English. So let's move on. Note that the nature of your conclusion will be directly related to your writing the comparison contrast. If, for example, you are comparing the laptop computer with the tablet, you may decide to recommend the laptop as better choice for the schoolwork and the other serious applications, whereas the tablet may be better suited for recreational purposes, such as accessing YouTube or streaming music from Amazon. Okay, so in other words, you are going to have to tailor your conclusion to your paper or to your other supporting details in your paper. If you have a problem, especially in the thesis, inserting your opinion, this might be a way to do it. You might say, I prefer one over the other. You might argue that one is better than the other by comparing them. That could be a tactic that you use. You'll see a lot of tech websites do this. If you've ever been in the market for a new phone and you wondered, well, should I pick Android or should I pick the next iPhone? And you might Google tech websites having the comparison contrast of iPhone versus Androids or whatever the latest Android is. And they'll do a comparison contrast. I highly recommend take a look at videos of YouTubers comparing iPhones and Androids or PC versus Mac. Those have been done 1,000 times over, and they're basically just verbal comparison contrast essays. So Google, one TV show versus the other. Google, if you've seen Google, House versus Scrubs, or let's say Marvel versus DC comics. You could even do like the movies, or do like Heath Ledger's Joker versus hold on, it's driving me nuts. I'm gonna have to Google it. Jared Leto. I just remembered it. Google Heath Ledger's Joker versus Jared Leto's Joker, and you'll get a big comparison contrast of those. You might get a lot of hate for Jared Leto, but that's beside the point. People love comparison contrast things. It's a very common essay format, and I expect good things out of you guys from this. Okay, so let's talk about, before we get into examples, let's talk about topics. You'll notice that one of my favorite topics for students to do on this is high school versus college. In fact, let's pull up my handy dandy other notepad here. I personally like high school versus college. I have a huge nostalgic sense for my freshman year of college, and doing an essay like this, high school versus college, seeing your guys' reactions to it, is a whole lot of fun for me. I really like this topic. Let's do DC versus Marvel Comics. It's a great one. Let's do okay, I got it. Let's do oh, I cannot believe I spelled that right. Let's do spaghetti versus Alfredo. Let's do different cheeses. Let's do cheddar. That is not how you spell cheddar. Cheddar versus Parmesan. Cheddar versus Parmesan. Let's do PC versus Mac. I'm a huge fan of PC for my computer. And I'm a huge fan of iPhones for... Where's the camera at? Okay, there it is. iPhones for the mobile. I could do one about that all day. In fact, I think I did do that in Comp 1. Let's do... Popular... Oh, I've got one. This one might take... This one... Okay, you probably can't do this one because it would take too long, but another good... Just to get the juices flowing. Game of Thrones Season 7 or Seasons 1 through 7 versus Game of Thrones Season 8. Oh, there we go. Season 8. I'm not a huge Game of Thrones fan. In fact, I'm not a fan at all. But I hear that Season 8 was a travesty compared to the rest of them. Again, that one might be a little bit long. I probably wouldn't do that one. But you could possibly do like comparison contrast between different episodes. Again, as long as you keep it... Oh, that's not the right one. As long as you keep it between 12 to 15 sentences, okay? Very important that. "12 to 15 sentences. Let's see here. Normally, I would like to call on you guys during this time and get a response out of you, but obviously I can't do that this time around. I expect you all to be able to do this, and I think you're going to be able to do it pretty well. I'm pretty sure most of you have probably done this in high school at some point, or have looked up other, media that have done comparison and contrasts. I'm pretty sure you're fairly comfortable with it. If you are not and you are having problems, just send me an email. It's no big deal. I can clarify if I've confused you during this topic at all. I usually respond to emails very, very quickly. Let's go over one example really quick. Let's see here. We'll go to... Actually, it's on Blackboard. We don't need to do that. We'll go to Content right here. We'll go to Classroom Resources. Click on Essay Examples. This is going to take you to ATU Writer 2019. There's also a 2008 version that you can Google, and it'll come up pretty quickly. Let's make the screen white. There we go. Brighten it up a little bit. Zoom in so you guys can see it. We're going to come down here, and we are going to do comparison and contrast. I just got an email. Private Room versus Double Room in Nut Hall by Belinda. I'm going to do this one because I used to have a private room. Let's see here. The dormitory Nut Hall has a variety of types of rooms for students. In Nut Hall, private room and a double room have a few things in common. Oh my, this is 3 pages long. Alright, we're not going to go over all of it, but we're going to look at how they're organized it and how they introduce it. In Nut Hall, a private room and a double room have a few things in common, but the level of privacy, the freedom to decorate, and the amount of space are very different. So, this is their thesis. Right here. Oh, right here. There. That one. So this is their thesis. Overall, very good. I don't like the use of very, even though I just said it. But it's good for the most part because, again, it gives a limited subject that they can discuss within the length requirement of 3 pages in this case. Well, 2 1/4. but it also gives their opinion. So in Nut Hall, a private room and a double room have a few things in common, but the level of privacy and the freedom to decorate and the amount of space are very different. So this is their opinion. And it also previews the content of the essay. It previews the organization of the content of the essay. So I know from this that the first thing that we're going to talk about is the privacy. The second thing is going to be the freedom to decorate. And the third is going to be the space. So starting off here, a private room in Nut Hall easily allows a person to have privacy. For example, in a private room, one can easily sit down at his or her desk and make an honest attempt to study. Studying is not a task that can be done just anywhere. Some students need total silence around them while they are studying. In addition, a private room offers a place for a person to make private phone calls. A private room provides a secluded location in which a person can discuss relationship problems with his or her significant other, or a death in the family with a loved one. Okay, so notice that this person has chosen to focus mostly on the private room, and they are going to assume that the reader just believes that a double room is the exact opposite of everything that they are saying here, which is fine. Personally, I like to be like really super specific, and I'll explain exactly what the other thing is like as well. But you can also choose to do it like this. Okay, never mind. So what this person has done is they've taken these three levels of things. Okay, they've done the privacy, the freedom to decorate, and the amount of space in the first three paragraphs for the private room. Okay, and then they've taken the next three paragraphs and they've gone over the same thing, the privacy, the decorations, and the amount of space for the double room. Love it. I love it. It's very well done, very organized, very uniform, predictable, but very good. Okay? Because all of it is previewed within this first little thing. And if I'd read ahead, I would have known that in the very beginning. But this is very good. It's a very good example. You can choose to do this block method in your essays, or you could choose to do the point-by-point method of saying, just going back and forth throughout, as long as you preview it in the beginning. Either is fine. Also, the point-by-point method is also the example the book used right here. So this is actually a very good example of another way you could do it. So you may choose to set up your body like this. You might go over point 1 for the laptop and the tablet, and then go over point 2 for the laptop and the tablet again. Or you might go over all of them for the laptop, and then you might go over all of them for the tablet. Okay? It just depends on how you want to set it up. You can do either one. It's no big deal. Again, if you're having any problems, send me an email. Please send me an email. If you're wondering why I'm looking up there, it's my second monitor. That's where I can see you guys at. Okay. Or that's where I can see myself at. Okay. I am starting to lose my voice. I hope that this actually recorded, and I hope you guys can hear everything. I miss you guys very much. I hope you're all doing very well. I hope you had a fun spring break. Shoot me an email if you have any questions at all. Thank you for watching this video.